When I say the wizard Shazam, I'm sure your mind defaults to this bomb. But what if I told you there is a real wizard, a true wizard Shazam, who's by far better than this dude? Today we'll be diving into the history of Shazam! And we will see why Jebediah of Canaan is 10 times the character Mamaragan can ever dream to be. Now, before I take you to his more popular post-crisis origin, we'll look at his pre-crisis origin. Mr. Jerry Ordway took this origin and built on it, but I really love the simplicity of his pre-crisis origin, so we'll start with that. Plus, there was an amazing wholesome thing at the end, and I never really noticed it till I read this storyline. Nowadays, when people say the wizard Shazam, everyone knows him to be Mamaragan, the aboriginal god of lightning. But what if I told you that much like Teth Adam and Billy Batson, the wizard too was a champion of the gods? Flashback to 1980, Billy Batson is working in his office and boom, a strange man arrives clad in an attire similar to that of Captain Marvel. He says he's the first in line of heroes and tells Billy to say his magic word, Shazam! And he is transformed into Captain Marvel. Our strange visitor talks about how he has battled evil in the past, but now he faces something he cannot handle alone, and so he beseeches Captain Marvel to join him into the past to aid him in battle. Captain Marvel, ever curious, asks him for his name, and he says he can simply refer to him as the champion. And so they both fly at the speed of light, breaking the barriers of time and space to get to eternity at the exact center of all creation. They then fly 9,000 years into the past and head to the mountain of the gods. Billy knows there are civilizations present that the modern world knows nothing about, but the champion says they must pass over and deal with the task at hand. Upon hearing Mountain of the Gods, Marvel deduces that it can't be the same gods who give him his powers because they aren't worshipped yet, and Solomon, Hercules, and Atlas wouldn't be born yet for thousands of years. And so the champion introduces us to his gods, namely Vodar, Master of Strength, Lumion, Patron of Wisdom, Ariel, swift messenger of the deities, Rebalve, most powerful of the gods, Elbiam, Lord of Courage, and finally Marzosh, God of Stamina. And so Marvel deduces that the champion didn't get his powers from the wizard, but from the gods directly, who preside over the same powers he gets from Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. And he also notes their names don't spell Shazam. Lumion, Patron of Wisdom, then fills Marvel in on why he was brought to this timeline. He's to help the champion defeat evil personified, a monster being with 3 forms, namely sin, terror, and wickedness. Rebalve then says it was to combat such beings that they created a champion by bestowing their powers to a deserving mortal. Now, side note, see what he says here, deserving. One thing that has been lost to time with the Shazam mythos is that aspect of deserving. People forget you have to be pure of heart, essentially possessing the attributes of a hero before you can be a champion. No, it's not by being a kid. Else, don't you think someone like Dick Grayson would have been Captain Marvel or Superman when he was still young? No, you must be pure of heart. Jebediah was pure of heart. Adam was pure of heart. Billy is pure of heart. Mary is pure of heart. There is a criteria that must be met to be the champion. And that's why I personally hate those 3 characters from the New 52, because these characters didn't earn the right to have these powers. Just because they are Billy's foster siblings, all of a sudden they get the powers? Yeah, right. If they were really worthy, they would have been chosen, but I digress. Moving on, after a light discussion, the champion takes Billy to go and face evil, and they find his camp, but he splits into his 3 separate forms to see how their several gods are promoting evil. Captain Marvel asks the champion which form to follow, but he brushes it off, saying he hears snoring from under the throne, and they find one of evil's servant gods, being laziness, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. So the servant gods of evil are the 7 deadly sins. After light interrogation, Laziness gives up the location of his brothers to the champion and Marvel, and so they split up, and using the wisdom of Solomon, Marvel even learns to speak a 9,000-year-old language. And so we see on the faces of evil, terror, observing hate and envy, sowing discourse, and so Marvel comes and packs them up. Then he goes on to pack up terror and takes him away. We then transition to the champion at the School of Philosophy, where he packs up pride and selfishness, then one-shots wickedness, and then meets up again with Captain Marvel. They then note that they managed to get everyone except sin. And so after light interrogation with injustice and greed, they tell them that sin is at eternity. And so they both fly at light speed and arrive at eternity to confront sin. And they then two-piece him. But sin, terror, and wickedness begin to merge back into evil. And so they find a rock which can be used to plug a pit. And so this is the origin of the Rock of Eternity, the pre-crisis origin. And it seems like it was Billy that named it, because the wizard says good name and notes that if evil breaks out again, they'll need 3 heroes to battle it next time. And so they go back to Earth, where the champion says he will take care of the 7 deadly sins later, and says his magic word, Vlarem, and he transforms back into a boy, which shocks Captain Marvel. And as he looks at him, he recognizes him as the wizard Shazam, who tells him that for 3,000 years, he too was a hero like Captain Marvel, until the gods who powered him were forgotten by all but him. And he notes how he turned the 7 deadly sins to stone. And this is the wholesome part. The wizard then goes on to say, in memory of the gods he once knew, he named Billy Captain Marvel because he was an anagram of his original magic word, Marvel and Vlarem. Isn't that amazing? And it ties into the Wiz Comics issue too, because I always wondered why, after giving him his powers, he was just like, I dub thee Captain Marvel. Now we know why. Marvel then says it makes him prouder than ever to bear the name. Wasn't that awesome and fantastical? This short story was better than anything DC has done with Captain Marvel in the last decade, and it's not even that hard to give him a good story. This proves it. So now we have seen the origins of pre-crisis Jebediah, or the Wizard, because he didn't have a proper name at this time. So it's time for us to jump to his post-crisis variant. But before we do that, come on guys, just leave a like and a subscribe for your boy. It's not easy to find all this old shit, but that's the job, that's the passion, and that's what it takes. Anyway, moving on. In the post-crisis era, the Wizard's story goes like this. He's but a young boy who came home to find his family slain by thieving bandits. On the hillside in Canaan, he screamed to heaven, "Why? Why?" And the gods themselves answered his cries, saying, "Why not?" Why not? The thunder bellowed. You asked for fertile lands to graze your flocks, abundant crops to feed your masses. What matter is it of ours that your people do harm unto each other? Speak, child, what would you have us do? Strike down those who have killed your family? And so young Jebediah, fearful to gaze upon the visage of the gods, hid behind the massive stone they cleaved in two, and he knew in his heart that he didn't seek vengeance. The god Lumion then said, "You are afraid? That is good." Side note, anyone notice how eerily similar this is to Absolute King Shazam? We see you, Jason Aaron, for sure. There is much to fear in summoning the gods. Step forth and speak. Jebediah then said he sought a covenant with them. Other gods joined in, asking what purpose this covenant would have. He shielded his eyes and said he wished to prevent what had happened to his clan from happening to others like him. Volda's laugh then shook the ground he stood upon. That he did not seek revenge amused the god. They then ask if he wishes for them to restore his parents, and how would he like them to prevent this violence from happening again? By striking down all bandits? Jebediah then says, fearing their wrath, by summoning them frivolously, he seized an idea that didn't bind the gods to more earthly duties. He asked each of them a bequest, a portion of their own special attributes to be used by him where needed. I see within you beats a heart of pure and strong, says Lumion. And he proposed they do what he said, with the provision that their powers will be revoked should he prove unworthy of their gift. Once again enforcing that you must be pure and worthy to be a champion of the gods, not just a child. Jebediah begins to thank them, and they tell him thanks should be withheld till their deed this day proves itself a blessing and not a curse. And with that, the gods made their gifts, each discharged with a blinding flash of lightning, the strength of Voldar, the wisdom of Lumion, the speed of Arel, the power of Rebave, the courage of Elbiam, and the stamina of Marzosh. And from that day forth, he was no longer a boy, and much more than a man. He was told to go forth and root out all evil, for now he is a champion of all men. And so he did, starting with the bandits. He had no way of knowing if they were responsible for his sorrows, but that didn't matter, for he laid down the laws and enforced them vigorously. And as fear of violence eased, a permanent settlement was formed, and the tents gave way to brick structures. And so Jebediah had been touched by the hands of the gods. And soon, word of his exploits spread, and he found himself being treated like one. The grateful inhabitants left him wanting for nothing, but he let himself be blinded by lust. He didn't see clearly until it was too late. His union had produced 2 offspring, a boy and a girl, with bewitching eyes like their mother, and the gods were not pleased. Side note, those 2 children of Jebediah are Blaze and Satanus, the 2 pseudo-rulers of hell. I get that. I guess that Shazam knot is strong. You know what I'm saying? And so his maid showed her true form and was banished with her children back to the netherworld that spawned her. My guy really cracked a wolf demon like Shazam, my man. And the gods made sure he saw the lesson in it all, that he was but a mortal subject to the same frailties as all men, which is really nice. It allows us to connect to our heroes in this fantastical world and letting us see we are just like them. And from Shazam's story, I think it's safe to say we shouldn't be trusting them light-skinned girls, bro. They are evil. They're so evil, like. Jebediah then resolved to fight harder the temptations laid before him. True hero right there, I can't lie. He then recounts when he had to face the 3 faces of evil, that even with the added vigor of youth, he needed the assistance of the gods to imprison that beast. The speed of Arel and stamina of Marzosh, you notice the power stacking and boosting, allowed him to create a whirlwind that trapped the demon, while the gods opened a portal into eternity where the beast was deposited into a flat section of rock from Hades itself, and then a matching rock, this one from the heavens above, is mated to it with such force as the strength of Voldar and power of Rebaveli will allow, and thus the rock of eternity was formed. 1 piece from hell, 1 piece from heaven, sealed upon the 3 great faces of evil. Jebediah then asks, who will watch over evil? And the gods replied, telling him it was his destiny when his mission had ended, or when he had chosen a worthy heir to the job. Now let's transition later down in his life. Before he had taken on the name Shazam, he was but a wizard, hungry for as much knowledge as his mind could hold. He had heard of the wise king of Israel, who guided his kingdom through years of peace and prosperity. On that day in Jerusalem, when a nomadic wizard was granted an audience with King Solomon the Wise, the legend of Shazam was born. Solomon was an open-minded ruler, rare in his day. His relations with Egypt, Tyre, and the Edomites had opened up immense libraries of knowledge to him, and he devoured them voraciously. And despite the unrest which later besieged his reign and his own failing health, he always made time for Shazam to share that knowledge. How could the world bear the loss of such a man? And so it is that as Solomon lay on his deathbed, Shazam performed the greatest act of wizardry he had ever attempted, and he gathered to his bosom but a small fraction of his essence, that is his wisdom, and left Israel never to return. Solomon once spoke of a champion for all mankind, and the lightning that escorted Jebediah signatured his destiny. A world so young needed direction and needed a champion. From the banks of the river Styx, he drew the essence of fearless Achilles. Of fearless Achilles. Then he went to Atlas of Rome to aid in his mission, to harness but an infinitesimal bit of his legendary stamina to bequeath the Earth's champion. In Thebes, he had hoped to call upon Heracles, but the Greek Olympian was inaccessible to him, and so the Roman Hercules was more than happy to grant his request. Upon hearing of his endeavors, the Roman Mercury wished to join the coalition. He granted him the right to bequeath his great speed, and he had despaired of bringing a Greek deity to his cause. But one night, Zeus came imparting a portion of his power and the means to call it forth. And so when he journeyed to Egypt, only one thing remained: the selection of his champion. He had by that time started calling himself Shazam and aligned himself with the pharaohs in order to find a successor, for he had grown weary of his duties and was eager to join the pantheon of gods he served. And the gods led him to Teth Adam. As a remote descendant of Egypt's first pharaoh, Memes,
criminal offense.
he seemed the logical choice. And so it was during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II that the wizard, now a high priest, has settled upon Teth Adam. Adam, one of the pharaoh's many sons, had impressed the wizard with his fairness and decency. Shazam sought to give Adam his own powers, but through Blaze's alliance with the Egyptian god Set, Adam was endowed with powers stolen from the Egyptian deities Shu, Heru, Amon, Zehuti, Aten, and Mehen. So the Egyptian god Set corrupted the spell, choosing only Egyptian deities, stealing their essences, and so instead of a hero, Shazam created a terror, and he had no choice but to stop Adam. The wizard, unaware of what Blaze and Set did, told the prince to speak the name Shazam! And so Teth Adam was now known as Mighty Adam, and Shazam expected him to carry on the good work he had started, which he did, always under the wizard's watchful eye. He saved hundreds during a flood on the Nile one year and earned the pharaoh's highest honor for arranging a major treaty with the Hittites, or the Hittites, great enemy of Egypt. Blaze then says she had erred. Adam hadn't been turned evil by her interventions, and many years later, she would correct that error. After the death of Pharaoh Ramses II, Shazam would leave Egypt, secure that Mighty Adam would carry on, and so Blaze, like her mother before her, would take the form of a fair maiden in distress and set about bewitching Adam. His family had just died, by the way, so it was understandable how he fell for this. In no time, she convinced Mighty Adam he should be Pharaoh, with her ruling beside him. But her father returned upon hearing of Adam's betrayal and dispatched him with such magic that even Blaze wasn't prepared for. The attributes that transformed Teth Adam were drawn out of him into a powerful scarab amulet, and so stripped of his powers, his body's natural aging took hold, rendering him a desiccated corpse in seconds. And so now, called Kem Adam, he was entombed in Ramses' temple at Abu Simbel. His sarcophagus, clutching the scarab, his talisman of power, put forever out of reach by death, or so the wizard thought. And so Adam's defeat was costly, and his body died that night. The gods and heroes that empowered his spell had lost all knowledge of it. His soul was left alone to begin a new search for a worthy champion. And once again, they reiterate that one must be pure, have the spirit of a hero in order to be empowered by the gods, not magic. He would then go on to be like a dad to Billy, being there for him till he eventually died fighting the Spectre. More happened after he died. He came back actually, but I don't consider it canon. If you read it, you wouldn't consider it canon either. Also, if you like the story Black Adam and you want to know more about him, be sure to check out this video on my page. I'll try to link it in the description if I can figure that out. But you can just enter my page and check it out. After you watch that, be sure to watch this one too, and I bet you $100 you change your mind on how you view Black Adam. And so you see, that's like the history of the wizard Shazam. If you want to know like what he did when Billy had become Captain Marvel, check out the power of Shazam. He was like a dad for him. He was there for him. He was a guide. He was a guide for him. He was leading him. Just he was being that mentor. What he was meant to be, he was it in the power of Shazam. But now let's move to Mamaragan, the absolute bomb. Not gonna lie, he doesn't appear much, right? And so I'm not really going to waste my time like that, but I did find some things about him, so let's get into it. So in the New 52, Judas Iscariot is the phantom stranger, which is fucking hilarious, okay? And so after he died, he is brought before the Council of Eternity and they judge the worst of sinners. And so Judas is there with two others and they adopt the Trinity of Sin. And so the wizards deem him guilty and he becomes the phantom stranger. Same thing with Pandora. He and the Council of Eternity banish the Trinity of Sin. Then the wizard comes back in the modern day to apologize to Pandora, telling her that the Council of Eternity was wrong and that she needs to harness the power of the box or some shit like that. I don't know, man. The story is a bore. Then from there we move to Future State Black Adam, which was a backup in Future State Suicide Squad. And in issue 2, we see Adam taken to the tower. Wait, no, not Future State. Before we go to Future State, we have to go to no. Okay, the next time the next point, like after that Pandora's box is shit, the next one you go to is Justice League Endless Winter, where we see him free Black Adam in the 10th century for him to help Hippolyta and her squad deal with some frost god or something like that. And in issue 2, we see them reseal Black Adam after the task was completed. From there, we go to the New 52 Shazam origin, where he meets Billy and gives him the power of the living lightning and supposedly dies. The next time we will see him is in Darkseid War, where he's fighting Yuga Khan, where even Billy is shocked to see him alive. Then he explains gods don't die, they just return to the source, where he then reveals that he was a god who went abroad to join a council and then came to be known as a wizard. Then we can go to Future State Black Adam, which was a backup in Future State Suicide Squad. And in issue 2, we see Adam taken to the Tower of Fate. This takes place in the far future, by the way. And he meets the wizard again and a future version of the Quintessence. And so they are betrayed by one of their friends and the unkindness finds them and Adam is hurled back in time to 2021. And if you want to see more of that, you can check out Shazam 2021. He didn't play much of a role here. He was just in the thing. The next time we see him will be Lazarus Planet, We Once Were Gods, and he's mad because Billy absorbed the Rock of Eternity into him, which makes no sense, and the wizard was locked out of his seat of power, a seat he so graciously forfeited. So what's all the fuss about? We then move to Lazarus Planet, Revenge of the Gods, where Mamaragan has allied himself with the gods of Olympus. And like, how the fuck did he even take the powers back? They are breaking canon. They are literally breaking canon. The wizard canonically cannot take the power back. Isn't that the reason Black Adam was always sealed or banished? And why he was very careful with who he selected as the next champion? Isn't that why he literally waited 5,000 or 4,000 years before he chose Billy Batson? Once those powers are given to a person, there are no take backs. That's the consequence. And the stupid part of the story, Mamaragan just became evil. For God knows why. He now switched up immediately. Hera lost. Like, once they beat Hera, the guy just switched up. Okay? He says here that once Billy cut him off from the Rock of Eternity, he was sure he had been betrayed. I mean, the guy has been AFK since he first met Billy, so why is he even angry? So he said he doesn't want to be responsible for releasing another Black Adam on the world, so he aligned himself with Hera, convinced only those in power should possess power. Then he tries to give the powers back, and they are doing this whole girl boss thing with Mary. And I don't get me wrong, right? Mary has always been that girl, but when you start forcing this narrative, it gets boring. It's so annoying. Like, you must not be in any man's shadow. Like, when I'm reading comic books with men and women that share like a mantle, like Superman, Supergirl, Batman, Batgirl, Captain Marvel, Mary Marvel, I swear to God, I'm not thinking about the girl is in the man's shadow. Just show me a good story and show me fighting. Don't care about anybody in any man's shadow. Like, all these things, they always, all these comic book writers, they get as them be. Okay. And so they return the powers, and this is the last time we see Mamaragan in canon. Like, I'm reading this shit to you, and even me, I'm falling asleep. What kind of a boring ass shit history is this? Did you see all the lore they literally threw away in the name of inclusivity? All the history, the whole backstory, the whole 9 yards. And for what? DC can be so unbearable sometimes. What role does this Mamaragan dude play? Like, just like those kids, he doesn't do anything for the story. He just exists to tick a box. Now, to clear up some misconceptions, people genuinely think that Mamaragan was a good decision because they felt the wizard was always originally from Egypt. But I've enlightened you now, and now you know he's from Canaan. So, as in Bible times Canaan. So, the next time you see someone saying this, please, I beg you, correct them. Some people agree with the race swap, but I wholeheartedly disagree with it, and I'm black. They only did it because of the New 52, and that was like, 2011, 2012, 2013, when race swapping was all the rage. That's why they made those 3 extras, so they can have Black Shazam, Asian Shazam, then double Mexican and gay Shazam in one character. It's not because they give a fuck about these characters. They created them to tick a box, and I know Geoff Johns was in his writer's room thinking he just made the next Nick Fury with that race swap. Even, like, look at it. I mean, they made him black, then they made him absent in Billy's life when the wizard is canonically recognized as Billy's mentor. Even if he's dead, his soul can always be summoned. So what were they implying with that? That he's black and he went to get the milk and never came back. I see you, DC. I see you. And so with all this information on their backgrounds and everything, the world built around them, what's the allure with this Mamaragan dude? The guy is a shit character that can't even play his role. He chose a champion, then died. It turns out bro isn't dead. He just doesn't give a fuck. Like, what is this? And he's the original god of whatever. He sure doesn't act like a god. See how he switched up on Billy? I mean, like, that's crazy. He doesn't even have an interesting backstory. Whereas my GOAT, Jebediah of Canaan, the real Shazam, has so much more to him, being the predecessor of both Adam and Billy, having the word Vlarem, being tricked and seduced by that evil light skin but vowing to be better, had 2 kids who are pseudo-rulers of hell alongside Trigon and Neron, being friends with King Solomon, going around the world to recruit the various gods. Then he eventually became a new god himself, fighting the Spectre and dying like a boss. That guy was him. He was him. I don't know what the fuck they are thinking keeping this Mamaragan dude around. Even his name pisses me off. Like, especially because you can alter DC history because everything has been restored. But this is to DC writers or whoever is watching this. I do feel like anything is possible, right? Who knows? Tomorrow I could become a writer, so I won't reveal the whole storyline I've been working on. But the easiest way to bring Jebediah of Canaan back into main canon without breaking established canon is one word. This is just one word. If you know, you know. Limbo. With that, guys, I'll be ending the video here today. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for 300 subscribers. And I just want you to know that Jebediah of Canaan is the best and the only Shazam in DC. Peace out.